It's time for This Week in Penn State football, and you bet we're going to look at Penn State's depth chart, their scholarship list. Now that the declaration day for Penn State's underclassmen are over, is Penn State in good shape or are they in bad shape? The Penn State Blitz podcast rolls on. I'm Bob Flounders, talking here with Greg Pickle. Greg, it's time to talk a little bit about Penn State's big picture depth chart with a nod to scholarships. James Franklin talked a little bit about he thought a few guys might leave and free open some spots. There's still another signing day coming up in a couple of weeks. In the end, though, they only really lost two prominent guys who declared for the draft.
Yep.
They lost another prominent guy to the transfer portal, and Justin Shorter. I don't know if you feel like defensive end Daniel Joseph is a prominent guy. He's in the portal as well.
Yeah.
But they didn't lose a lot of bodies yet.
Yeah.
So how does this factor into what he can still do on the second signing day in the first week of February, and how does it kind of maybe affect, you think, the depth chart overall? Obviously, it's a boon to the defensive end room to have Shaka back.
Yeah, so they're at 90 right now based on our projections, and I just don't see how they can sign anybody else on that second signing day. Now, obviously, James Franklin, Andy Frank, the rest of the staff that really is on top of the numbers has more insight than we do as it relates to maybe guys who are thinking about transferring but stay stuck around for the spring semester to get the credits, and then they'll move on. We'll see. Maybe they want to graduate in the spring and then leave. You know, if you had a list of every Penn State football scholarship player who was graduating in the spring, you might have a good idea of some of the candidates because those guys can play right away. So there will be guys who graduate in the spring and then enter the portal to play one season somewhere else and not have to sit out a year. So they'll get down to 85. It will be, I'm sure it'll be easier said than done. But at the same time, if you only got 5 spots to clear, you know, that's the normal, I think, attrition number is 7 during a college football offseason. And that's in the portal or medical. That's not even talking about the draft necessarily. So they're already at 2. They got 5 more to go. And it always takes care of itself. So time will tell how it all shakes out. But I just don't. With 27 guys already signed, I know back in July, at Big Ten Media Days, James Franklin said that 30 was possibly the number they could sign in the class of 2020. But I just have to think at that point in time, he was thinking Shaka Toney was more likely than not to go to the NFL. Probably thinking Tariq Castro Fields was more likely than not to go to the NFL. Maybe one other guy. So I think at this point, now that all of same Michael Mennett, Will Fries, maybe one of those two go, I think you can probably hedge. You could have hedged your bets on that back in July. Obviously not so much now that we're in January. So you add it all up, and I just think that they probably can't add anybody at that signing date unless they know a number of guys who are just staying for the spring semester and then heading out.
It's going to make for an awkward signing day press conference when they announce that they haven't signed anyone, though.
Yeah.
Isn't that
It'll
problematic?
be billed as something else, like the introduction to Penn State's
That's
3.
exactly what it's going to be.
The James Franklin coaching recruiting news conference is what we'll call that one.
Do you think that secretly he was hoping a couple more players would have left so this would be a little bit less complicated for him?
Maybe, but at the same time, I think that there's, think about back to this time last year and how much panic there was when all those guys entered the transfer portal right after the Citrus Bowl, and it seemed like the world was falling down. So there's something to be said, I think, about
depth.
What you can say about not only depth, but guys coming back and the perception of that from outside of the program. So that helps. And it looks better to me, I think, if guys leave after spring practice, because then it's very easy to explain, well, they came out, they didn't get the practice reps they wanted, so they're going to go somewhere else, as opposed to leaving right after the season where some guys who are contributors jump in that portal, and all of a sudden it makes you wonder what's going on. So I think it may look harder than it is from the outside for them to get down to 85. I don't expect it to be an issue, but let's not forget, too, that he was talking in December about rule changes that might make things a little bit more flexible when it comes to that 85 number. Haven't heard of anything yet. We'll have to wait and see.
I think the transfer portal will obviously not be as crazy real quick as last year, but I do think you're right. Tommy Stevens left after spring. You could see a player or two maybe go that route after spring. Would you agree?
I would set the over-under at 4.5 and take the over. There you have it. Super Bowl.
I'm under. It's a dead under.
All right. Well, we shall see. You have probably been correct on every single prediction since we started this podcast, so maybe I'll get one this time.
Okay.